Welcome to this morning's Clock Must Know session, essential insights on what legal departments are actually doing with AI. I'm Jennifer McIver, Director of Legal Operations and Industry Insights at Wolters Kluwer ELM Solutions. I am a recovering attorney. I am kind of a control freak. I am risk averse. The idea of failing forward, failing fast, not always quite the best at it, but I'm embracing it, and I think you have to as the AI technology progresses. And now I'm ready to hear what Nishad, what Greg, what Stacy, and what Darth have to say about how they've moved forward and how they're successfully embracing AI and coming up with great solutions. All right, Stacy, let's take it away.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Jennifer. So welcome, everybody. I hope everyone enjoyed the opening session, and we're so thrilled that you're here with us today, this morning. I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves, and I'll start with me. My name's Stacy Walsh. I lead legal operations for corporate legal at Travelers Insurance, and I've been in that role for about 7 years. I, like Jennifer, am also a recovering lawyer, and I've had a bunch of different roles in legal or legal adjacent really for my entire career since graduating from law school an embarrassing number of years ago. We're all going to share a fun fact or AI-related joke or myth buster to introduce ourselves. So I will ask the audience, what kind of music does AI listen to? Algorithm. That's we're starting off on a high note there. And I'm going to turn it over to Greg to introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Greg Bennett. I'm a director in global legal services in technology and AI for Workday. I've been at Workday for about 6 years now. And I guess my joke is, or my observation is, I'm convinced that Alexa eavesdrops on me. I see you all nod your heads, so it's okay.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Darth Vaughn. I'm still an active lawyer. I'm Associate General Counsel and Managing Director for our Policy and Legal Operations at Ford Motor Company. Fun fact about me, I was not named after Star Wars. My mother wanted to name me Daryl, and my father wanted to name me Garth, and it was going to be Darth or Garrel, so you pick.
I was convinced it was Star Wars.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nishad Abraham. I'm Senior Director of Legal Operations at Pax8. For those who don't know, that it's an online marketplace for cloud solutions. I've been there for about a year and a half, but I've been doing legal ops for about 15 years now. And my myth buster, I guess, is basically it doesn't matter how you talk to the AI. I attended a number of these, I'm sure you all have, and the presenter said it doesn't matter how you talk to it, and it's just typing out very abrupt commands to get its product. It does matter. Talk to it politely and talk to it how you would like to see the product come out of it. So if you're asking for a summary to share with your boss, ask it nicely and it'll draft it as such. So it matches your tone.
Great, thank you all so much. So we're gonna get started. I'm really thrilled to serve as a moderator here, and each of my colleagues here has a wonderful story to tell about the AI journey in their legal department. So I'm gonna let each of them tell that story. But first, I just wanna do some informal surveying of the folks in the room. So by a show of hands, how many of you are using generative AI in your legal department right now, today? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you are in companies where use of generative AI is not permitted right now? Okay. For those of you using generative AI, and I'm just going to run through a couple of options here. How many are using Copilot? How many are using Gemini? How many are using Notebook LM? How many are using ChatGPT? All right, this is really interesting. Any other ones you want to throw out there that we should ask about?
Anthropic, Claude.
Claude. Llama. Okay, so good, like good smattering. That's good.
DeepSeek.
DeepSeek.
Yeah.
That's a whole other conversation. Okay, so I thought you guys might be interested to see that from everybody, and I'll turn it over to Greg to tell his story at Workday.
Sure. I think just to start off with, back in late 2023, upon the big release of ChatGPT, there was all this fanfare. our chief legal officer, Rich Sauer, started a Slack channel. And he said, I just want to take in all of your AI ideas. What can we do in the legal department? And the Slack channel eventually grew and grew and grew, and we gathered a lot of good data out of it. But then in early 2024, we wanted to make more of a strategic investment in AI. And our approach was, it's not so much about the tool, it's about the skill. And at Workday, we highly focus on skill sets. And so what we did is we invested in actual AI training or AI prompt skills training for our department. And it was mandatory that everyone had to do it. And so over the course of last year, we had 94% of our legal department complete the course, which is I think it's a very huge monumental undertaking for a department to do that. But at the same time, early last year, our business technology department, we rolled out Gemini, we rolled out Slack, we rolled out Zoom AI features. And they started a program about everyday AI, and they promoted the use of AI in Workday. And in the first quarter and a half, legal's numbers were really low, right? But I like to attribute that when we made this investment in our training, our numbers started ticking up. And by the middle of the year, we were leading the pack for Workday. So I think that when we talk about AI, when we have peer-led examples, when you have your own groups encouraging people to use AI, that innovation starts. And I really think when we use AI in general, especially in legal departments, it's a huge opportunity for us to build things, to come up with new ideas. We have our own internal legal AI team where we actively promote the use of AI tools and processes in our department. And some really interesting stuff is coming out from the attorneys, operations people, and we like to showcase those things. So that's all in a nutshell. And you all know how AI is moving so quickly, right? Now we're in Notebook LM, everyone's using it, and now, Workday as a general, as a skills investment again, are really looking at that skill set overall as a company and developing kind of an AI-first mindset, not just in our products, but in our workforce as well. So they are actively investing in our adoption and more or less training and recycling and making sure that we're constantly thinking about that and investing in our workmates so much that we all have AI goals as part of our performance.
That's cool.
That's in a nutshell. Anyway.
Yeah, Darth?
Yeah, our AI journey began a number of years ago. We were actually using traditional AI in the application to the practice of law in about 2018, 2019. But the technology had a barrier. It wasn't good with language. So the amount of training we would have to do, the investment we had to make, it wasn't necessarily, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze, so to speak. But in September of 2022, we got early access to GPT-4 vis-a-vis Casetext when they were building CoCounsel. We participated kind of in their beta development there. And our minds were blown. And we beat our data scientists to generative AI. We showed them, and in quick order, they spun up some homegrown tools that we have. So we have what is called Ford LLM. It's a portal into a number of different foundational models and development kits and applications that go along with that. We also are partnering with vendors who are providing us third-party solutions in particular areas. And we have really good engagement. I mean, I will say the thing that I overestimated was how quickly, or I thought people would adopt this much more quickly than they have. I think the tech is the easy part of it. The hard part is the change management aspect around it. The vast majority of people still don't trust the technology. They're unsure about it. And the early adopters are starting to kind of lap their competitors and their colleagues in many ways. So for us, similar to you, we put a big emphasis on training. But a human-centric approach where we have humans at the helm, humans in the loop, messaging to them that we're not coming to take your jobs, we're giving you a tool to give you a superpower, to enhance you. Initially in our journey, we started identifying use cases. How can we use this? We were all building the plane as we were flying it, so to speak. No one knew. We've matured from use cases to everyday companion. So the way we interact with it now, and we've deployed it, we're 100% deployed. The vast majority of people have adopted it in one way, shape, or form. But it's just up and running as a companion next to you, helping you at specific points in your workflow throughout your day. I think the jury's still out on how quickly we can get the late adopters on this. But the biggest influence we had was when leadership leaned in on this. And when this became a part of people's objectives and KPIs, when their performance reviews were going to be measured against their adoption, that ignited a firestorm in our organization. And even the people that were skeptical, at the very least, wanted to get a check mark on their objectives and KPIs, and we saw engagement. So I thought if we just built something beautiful, they would come, people would see the benefits. I really believe that if your organization is going to take the next step, leadership has to lean in. It has to be top down. Because, very few people like change. Like I think Jay has a statistic, 1 in 6 people like new things. 1 in 6 people hate new things. Everyone else is in that bell curve. And the only way to kind of move the needle forward in large organizations is a top-down approach. You have to give them the tools, you have to give them a safe place to practice and play. But if leadership is not pushing this, you are not going to get the traction you need.
Yeah. Nishad?
Awesome. So between Greg and Darth, I think I walked in thinking that we were probably an intermediate level AI adopted legal department, but we're still beginner compared to these two, which I'm going to go out on a limb and say is probably half of this room, if I had to guess. Still hearing about these use cases and all the great things that people are using, but kind of struggling to come up with a plan and roll it out because you're still trying to get buy-in, you're trying to get the perfect tool, and there's a lot of noise about what tools are offering what types of service. So our journey only actually, within the legal department, only started at the start of this year. So there was a lot of AI talk. We did have the tools company-wide implemented last year, so we primarily use Microsoft Copilot. And so at the kickstart of this year, we had a leadership offsite, and that's when it clicked. The kind of, it's a big deal. That we all need to implement it. It might take our jobs. It will. And that's when we're like, okay, we need to figure this out very quickly. So it's trying to educate yourself on the different type of models and like all of this stuff. And that education, we all in the legal department couldn't necessarily rely on just the company because they are busy working on governance and frameworks and all that. So we had to educate ourselves on a lot of what's out there, specifically for legal, who's using it, and then come back in a forum. And so sifting through all of that, coming up with a plan to kind of maintain that enthusiasm and try to apply it in our work, we are just starting out. So I would say it's 2 parts. So one is with the Copilot, we're using it for your basic recording meetings, taking transcriptions and getting summaries, takeaway items. And at first, a little apprehensive, but after we saw the product come out, we were kind of blown away. Being able to join a meeting and not have to worry about taking notes, or if you committed to a specific action item, there's a lot more free-form, creative discussion happening in these meetings. And so that's kind of our biggest use case. We've gone on to making playbooks. So we all know for change management, we need to document things. And so we don't open up Word anymore and start from scratch or use a prior template. We just have free-form discussions about what a process is and what needs to be considered. We also are speaking differently in meetings, knowing that the AI is listening and we wanted to capture certain comments. We will repeat things. And if you're an outsider just watching, like, why are they talking like that? It's because we're trying to curate the product that comes out of it. So at the end of the day, that's kind of what we're actually doing. I wanted to come in and say all the fun things and kind of groundbreaking things we have scheduled for tomorrow. But that tomorrow keeps getting kind of pushed back a little. So I just kind of wanted to be honest with everyone here. But the amount of commitment that it takes to make this successful comes from the tone at the top and also taking kind of a pause at the start of every meeting to say, did you consider or how have you used AI in what we're doing today? Not even an intense meeting where there needs to be kind of a big product or a summary shared, but just kind of regular cadences, like how have you considered AI? The minute you kind of shift from asking that question, it's easy to not go. It's like going to the gym. You skip a couple of days, it's hard to get back, and we all get busy. But we realize when we go a week or so without asking that question, we're falling behind because there's a new article, a new tool, a new use case, and we're like, oh, we need to get back on this because things are moving quickly. So I think that's kind of been our journey. Still a beginner stage, but it is very promising. We're trying to adopt the behaviors in making it more consistent, and we're also trying to reconsider the product that we are delivering to our customers. And when I say customers, I mean our internal company outside of legal. So we all know change management and the number of checklist items you need to do if a policy's out, where you need to post it, things like that. We are leveraging AI agents in a lot of what we do through the Copilot suite, and we were all able to do it ourselves. Watched probably 2 LinkedIn learning videos and was able to build a little bot that sat on our SharePoint. So instead of creating pages and pages of information that we need to communicate to the company, and we know the insights are selling us like 3 people clicked it. We are storing all the information on the back end and letting a bot ask questions so someone could come in. Does the policy affect me in so-and-so? It'll scour the resources that we put together in one kind of housing for it, and it'll answer the person's question. And we have a lot of form responses. If someone has a specific word or something like that, it will give a form response, so we know that it's not going to go the wrong way. So long story short, there's a lot of things developing and things we need to reconsider in terms of what we need to provide our business customers at the end of the day.
So one question I have for each of you is, not just in legal, but businesses now are investing significantly in developing, maximizing the use and the potential benefits of generative AI for the enterprise, for the underlying business. And lawyers in the legal department has a front row seat, or should, right, to those changes to help manage the legal risk associated, lots of legal risks associated. And I was estimating that I suspect half of the legal department at my institution is engaged in some way in advising the business about the risks associated with using AI, whether that's intellectual property or contractual or regulatory or any number of things. Everybody's touching it. And I'm wondering, from your guys' perspective, do you think that the lawyer's front row seat to the business imperative to innovate with AI is helping or hurting the adoption in legal for your own sort of whether it's a specific use case or the using it as your everyday companion?
That's a good question. I would say it's enabling from a workday perspective, just the nature of our products and how we want to use AI and the way that we are starting more of a pursuit of adopting our entire workforce. It's not just the skills, again, but what comes from what Darth said about leadership being invested. Also comes the message about responsibility, right? Yeah. A responsible AI policy, or responsible AI messaging. How does privacy, how does security weigh into our products, but how we use AI internally. And in our legal department, of course, we heavily influence that. We have our own responsible AI group as well that goes into the products and influences these internal tools. So to answer your question, I think it's a positive, and I think it's necessary. But also, when we think about negative aspects of AI, that's what drives some of the mindset of, hey, I'm ambivalent about using this tool. I'm afraid of what's going to say or what's going to store, that type of nodes. But having that training about responsible AI ensures kind of more adoption, in my opinion. Yeah.
It's a good question. I mean, we get the lawyers put the no in innovation. We're the group that comes in and kills all the great ideas. What we found is that when you involve legal up front, they're able to steer you in the right direction. So you don't go down a wrong path where you develop a 60-page plan and then you find out 30 of those pages you can't do. So because we're champions for the technology, because we were early, we have a seat at the table. And to your point, yes, you have to do it ethically, you have to do it responsibly, but I think you need your office as your general counsel engaged up front in the process so that you can develop in a framework that you can sustain for a long period of time. Also, I'll say this, and I saw a few hands raised with your question about who's prohibited from using AI. I promise you there are people using AI in those companies. And I know, because I have some law firms that say, yeah, we can't use it, but I read the work we get coming in, and it has that AI accent, and I'm like, I know your associate's using it, but it means your associate is using it in a public forum, which is not safe for my data. So I think it's, the demands on our time are so great. We are required to be productive and do more with less. People are going to go use these tools, and you need to give them a safe place to do that.
We're a similar boat. We say no, but we do give them avenues for how they can use it without using company-specific information and things like that. So we want people to start adopting it in kind of their behavior and general approaches in all the work they do, because this is a transformation that is going to go beyond our professional lives. So we need to be able to adopt that to a certain degree. And we kind of rely for our employers on, all right, what's actually okay to use versus what's going to kind of take over all my data tomorrow. So we try to educate as much as possible internally. I think I mentioned earlier, we have an AI governance committee, which stays pretty flexible in terms of the ongoing changes that are happening in the industry. And we also have an AI transformation office that is in charge of making sure the business usage of AI is kind of compliant and governed well internally. And along with that, we are making sure that we are kind of changing the way we have the AI discussions. So we're like a toddler asking why or how a million times. And even when it comes to our vendors, if they're saying they use AI, like, okay, how? And after a couple of times of asking, you start getting into the nitty-gritty details. So that helps educate us and really serving a good understanding and baseline for, oh, that's how they're really using it. It's not much. And having that level of understanding helps you compare between other sources that you're hearing from.
Yeah, any other comments from either of you about adoption? I know Nishad's talked about it, but like, I know Greg, both you and Darth have talked about how imperative training was to sort of like bringing everybody on board, but not to like rehash the change management tale we've all lived and we live every day, but anything special or unique about the adoption journey for either of you that would be worth sharing?
Yeah, I think that, what I really appreciate about the approach Workday's taking is that we're not going to do, what we realize is that a peer-led approach in this arena really makes a difference. And again, I realize we started with kind of this one-size-fits-all, kind of take this prompt engineering training just to get you started and understanding. But when we start thinking about more of advanced use cases, you're not going to get a one-size-fits-all advanced use cases module out there. You're going to want to see or identify amongst your peers who is actually doing some of these amazing things with AI, especially in the legal space. We're a niche environment. People are coming up with some amazing features that they're able to use to modify and enhance their workflow. So I think that's one of the key points that I would recommend is don't wait for your training program or training team program to come out with something. Develop an internal group for yourselves just to come up and just start throwing spaghetti on the wall when you have access to these tools. What can we use it for? The biggest thing that we see is like contract summarization, right? Just summarize this thing for me. Get me started on an email, or on presentation, something doesn't sound right? Run it through the AI. It's a really helpful device to help you move and to get started and to move more efficiently.
I mean, so it's a little counterintuitive. We saw bigger breakthroughs when we forced everyone to get in a room like this, open their laptops, and start to walk through how to use the technology. We do a ton of trainings, but when you do that in a remote environment, people focus on other things. They've got their email up, they're working on this other thing while they're listening to you. I think innovation requires white space in your calendar. So for us, we are blocking out time on Fridays, at least for our team, where we are going to learn or we're going to train. I think you need to give your people the space to learn how to use the technology. It takes about 10 to 20 hours to really get comfortable with the tech, much less master it. And to your earlier point, when they're using the technology and it's not giving them the results they want, they get discouraged and they go off and do things the way they've been doing it. So sitting down with them and showing them, how do you prompt effectively, right? How do you get the output and return that you actually want? And then when you see that eureka moment like light up on their face, you know you have them now, right? Oh, it actually will do what I want it to do. I just didn't have the skill set to use the tool. And that's what it is at this point in time. And it's evolving very quickly, and I'm not even going to speculate what the next 2 years are going to look like. But for now, it's a tool. And the only way to use the tool is to have the skill set, and you have to give the people time and space and training to get those skill sets.
Let's talk a little bit about outcomes. So I know two of you have mentioned AI being part of KPIs that are being tracked for performance purposes. What other outcomes is legal or your organization tracking or focusing on with respect to these initiatives? Darth, you want to go first?
Productivity. Reducing cost, internal satisfaction, client satisfaction. We look at kind of our ROI in those buckets, but you have to justify your investment in the tech. And we have a lot of tools to play with right now. I don't know that that's always going to be the case, as you know, economics and market pressures force us all to focus on certain things. But we're exploring as much as we possibly can. For us to do that, though, every single new project we bring on, you have to have a business justification for it. It has to be more than just, hey, I've got a great idea. You have to actually go through the process of identifying and documenting, how is this going to help us in the short term and the long term? How's it going to help our company make more money, right? How's it going to make our people happier? And if you can't do that and you haven't gone through that process, you're not going to get any traction in terms of your project or your idea. So I would say make sure you have a process up front by which you're onboarding all of this and tracking it, and that you're going through the hard process of doing the math up front to see if it's actually worth the investment that you're making in the tech.
Just to add on to that, there's the difference between nice to haves and must haves, and the investment cost is high, so where do you spend the $5 in your pocket internally in budget? One thing I heard a couple weeks back when it came to AI, it's identifying the point of friction and applying AI there. So these are those just inherent challenges that you've had in either your business process or kind of the product that you're providing, and see how AI can be leveraged there. So sometimes it's hard to quantify something when you're still unsure of where it's going to land. I would just personally, that my advice would be try to pivot the focus to applying it at those areas of friction first.
Frank?
Yeah, I think, and then again, setting goals. I want to share this, is that after last year, we found at Workday roughly about 60% of our workforce on average is using these tools. And we now have an ambitious goal is to raise that by 20% with this adoption program. You know, and I think adoption is easy to track, but then when you put another layer on top of that of like, you have to set an AI goal for yourself this year, that starts generating the adoption. I still think it's a little bit challenging to find out what is the qualitative outcome of that adoption. But just to share with you, we actually, at the end of last year, we ran a survey in the legal department asking them, how was your use of these tools? How easy were they to use? Did they make you more productive? Are you more efficient? Overall, we had an 82% customer satisfaction score on that. So just to put that into your mind too, is like there's adoption, but also take a pulse of your team. Take a pulse of how they are receiving it, how are they using it, and then just to what Darth said, that'll give you some more justification about using these tools. Hey, we're getting this output out of these now.
Anybody else?
I think the adoption is easy, but then you have your ebbs and flows. I'm sure a lot of us are fatigued from hearing about it. It's understanding that there is no end state. All of our end states are going to be different. All of our applications of AI are going to be different. But it's good to know what others are doing. Yeah, one day I know that can be done. And I think it's kind of just understanding kind of your utopian version of what you can build internally, and just knowing what resources and things you have internally. So setting that kind of helps counter the fatigue to know, like, well, those are things that I would actually use and apply.
Do any of you have an example of something like mind-blowing that either you did or someone on your team did that you felt like this isn't, like you saw the literal light bulb going off? Any moments like that you want to share?
Can I take that one really quick?
Yeah, for sure.
I want to share, one of my colleagues, Christina Walker, is in the audience right now, and she slacked me a couple weeks ago, because I always see as like, when you're doing this prompting, you have to take a next step and next step and next step. But she said, have you heard of this prompt? And it said, now that I've been prompting for the past 5 iterations, what are my blind spots? So I'd be on a topic, and I always end it with that phrase now, and the AI comes back and says, hey, everything you're doing is great, but you're missing these bullet points. And it's that next step of you taking that next piece of information through it. So I think you'll learn these things, these avenues of how to improve prompting, how to leverage this AI. And so I think that was one of the most big aha moments I've had in a long time.
Yeah, one of my colleagues who I think just stepped out because he's speaking next, Aaron Boersma, who leads our spend innovation. Using generative AI, he was able to spin up an application and platform in a few days. It probably would have taken our IT team like months to do. And it is 85% of what we need, and it's a quick lift and shift to then take it into our environment. And what is mind-blowing about that is, he's a finance guy, he's economics background. Like, he's not a coder, but he's learning to build things using the technology and the subject matter expertise he has so that it works for him. And what is huge about that is this technology has been democratized in a way that everyone is starting to do that. What that means for this industry, though, especially in legal operations, is we're also your competition. So you're building great products and you're running and implementing the technology in your current platforms. You also have development teams in law firms and in legal departments that are able to spin things up very quickly. So your value proposition has to be spot on. Because if you come to us and you're like, hey, for the low price of $1 million, you can have this awesome thing, we have a decision to make. And that is like, well, that sounds great. And it's probably going to be like, 15 or 20% better than what we could build. But if we can build it at a fraction of the cost, that's what we're going to end up doing. So again, your value proposition and your products have to be tight now, because you're not just competing with each other, you're competing with us as well.
Yeah.
2 things. I think that build versus buy concept, it's a concept you can be adopting, even if you have a basic kind of co-pilot. I mentioned agents earlier. I've sat through a lot of demos like, this is an agent and I can build it myself. But you don't know that's capable unless you're kind of getting your hands dirty in some of these basic tools. And my big moment was we have a CLM internally that uses AI. They are scrubbing for certain types of data that are not keyed in, and we can tell if we're looking at something keyed in or AI driven. And we're constantly driving the conversation, how we're using AI, what's on your roadmap, just so we can kind of get ideas and know what's coming around the corner. The moment for me was when I realized our vendor was not re-scrubbing because the models have changed. AI models are changing rapidly. So if you put a contract in earlier this year, at the end of last year, and you rerun on your entire repository, all the AI data is going to look different now. I was a little upset that they never called that out to me, but it's my moment of, because I understood how it's being applied, I was able to kind of put pressure on the work product from that point. And it kind of empowered me to just start asking more questions from there.
Yeah, that leads actually to one of the next questions I wanted to ask. We've talked about this as a group in our prep, like, what are the watch-outs? Like, if you're embarking on this journey and you're thinking about building versus buying, like, what are the things you want to tell people? Like, don't forget, please remember this. This is a watch out. Darth, you've got a good one.
I would say you have to understand the technology enough to know if what you're buying is just a thin wrapper application to a foundational model that you could have directly engaged with for a fraction of the cost. I call it like Gen AI for dummies. Like, they're creating pretty things that work better for those individuals who don't have the skill set, but the underlying technology itself is really what is running the platform. So it's a decision each organization will have to make, but you do need that domain knowledge and subject matter expertise on your teams to know if that investment is real or if you're just paying a middleman for access to OpenAI's, whatever model.
Don't want to repeat what they said, but I think just giving you some advice is, if you don't know where to start, take prompting classes. It's kind of how we all started. And just making that a muscle that gets stronger and stronger kind of helps you in what you're applying and helps you use these tools when you finally do get them.
So if you find an AI tool that you love, you should totally embark on a 5-year deal with them, right?
Of course.
I love the laugh, right? So no, definitely not. Because the technology is evolving insanely fast. And any examples of that evolution that you guys, like Nishad just gave us a great one, but that you guys have of like the lightning speed at which things are changing?
Yeah, I think for us, it was just more than a year ago that we had an initial Google Gemini rollout pilot from our business technology team. Fast forward to just less than a year now, it has grown and has evolved into more advanced Google Gemini features. And then we just rolled out Notebook LM 2 weeks ago. And if you haven't seen Notebook LM, it's a pretty amazing capability for you as an individual of how you kind of research, how you do these prompts, how you consolidate information. And I look back and I think I always talk to my team about this. I say, hey, just under like a year ago, we had to come up with 100 people from the legal department who were going to be pilots. Now we feel like we went through this advanced training. Everyone is starting to use these tools, and it just moves at an incredible pace. And if you think about like Clock 1 year ago, and you go and look at the vendor floor, like you realize the melee out there. But it's those advanced features that are coming up, and you're starting to see in these products. So it's hard to keep up, and that's why it's important to what my colleagues up here is saying is like know the difference. Have those individuals who are specialists who can like weed out the differences in these applications, and then who can help you advise on that as well, apart from just the training.
Yeah, everything is speeding up. Every 3 to 6 months, I feel like we see some breakthrough, because there's a space race going on between all these companies that are developing this technology. The cost of compute is dropping. We know the cost of building these models is coming down. I think that's the lesson that we saw from DeepSeek so everything is speeding up. Also, the volume and velocity of everything hitting legal is speeding up because our clients are using this technology, right? So when plaintiffs' attorneys are spinning up 1,000 complaints a week using the technology, the litigation department is going to be more busy. When the business decides that they're going to generate 15 strategic plans instead of 5, that is all going to come down and necessarily hit legal. So just to keep pace, it's kind of an arms race. And you have to arm your professionals with the skills and the technology so that your companies continue to move at the speed of business and have a competitive advantage. But to your point, like if you want to enter into a 3-year deal with a provider, there's a good portion of companies whose entire business plan may be obsolete when GPT-5 comes out. Like that's how fast we're moving. That's how good things are. Things are improving at such a rate that I can't tell you what the technology is going to look like in a year. So stay flexible, stay agile.
Yeah. We have a few minutes left, and we'd love to take questions from the audience if anyone has any. There's one in the back, I see. I think you're just going to have to yell. The question is, what about AI use for legal work? And are there tools that you're using that are legal specific, built in the legal domain, and that's focused on legal work? So, any?
We don't have many legal-specific AI use cases other than the CLM one I mentioned earlier. But in terms of how we're using it within legal, it is more on a kind of informational push basis. We have bots set up so when privacy legislation changes and it's looking at certain resources, we get pinged and notified. So it's kind of accelerating our kind of knowledge base faster. Each of the attorneys in their practice areas do have their specific use cases that I can't speak to, but from a larger enterprise application, I wouldn't say there's anything in particular that's being used currently other than your daily practice being incorporated. I'm sure they have more specific examples.
Yeah, I mean, we both. We use legal-specific third-party vendor platforms and legal research and some document processing things that we do. Internally, our lawyers are using it for legal work, whether you are summarizing contracts or you are drafting contracts or coming up with a negotiation tactic for a particular deal, whether you are summarizing depositions, creating deposition outlines, whether you are analyzing a legal case. So we believe there's a space for both. We believe there are legal-specific platforms that make a lot of sense. But at the same time, there's a balance to be made in terms of the investment. And when the price points are too high on some of these things, we're forced to be creative in terms of what we can do internally.
Yeah, I would echo exactly what you say too. It's a hybrid of both. Legal processes, like you just said, contract summarizations using Gemini, and again, more research and information gathering capabilities.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, question? Katie?
Question for Doug. Doug, you talked about use of predictive analytics in the past with your work before, and now using GenAI, using Zoom and others. How have your, especially your lawyer clients, have been specific guidelines around how to maintain privilege? Are there concerns that they have seen, and how have you made sure that as you are pushing both at work day and yours, you're pushing, OKRs and AIs, those things are taken care of?
Right. So, I mean, it's training, and it's being on top of the projects that are going on. So if we have projects that are focused on the Office of General Counsel, those are privileged and confidential projects. Everything's labeled correctly. At the beginning of our meetings, we put that in the transcript. This is a privileged and confidential meeting with members of the Office of General Counsel. So I think it goes around your discipline, and to your point, the governance and framework that you put in place around how you're using this upfront. And that way you don't inadvertently waive it by giving unnecessary people access to certain information. Are we segregating our data in a particular place that no one can come along later and say, well, you did not maintain confidentiality? So I think you need to be extremely intentional up front on that point, and that's why the OGC needs to have a seat at the table when you're developing these things.
Question here in the front. So I'll repeat the question is in terms of e-discovery, there's going to be a time when we're going to be prompting the LLM to give us data or answer a question, and the LLM is going to be pretty good at finding the smoking gun, as it were. And are we thinking about how to manage that? Did I summarize that?
Or was your question, is there a concern around creating more and more data that's going to be subject to discovery?
Yeah, you could back that into.
Oh,
Yeah.
That too.
yeah. Oh, I mean, of course, like e-discovery is a very fertile place that this technology can be applied. I think the struggle there is it defensible in a court? And they're lagging. But it doesn't mean first pass isn't a really good idea if you have the capabilities to do that, right? On the other side, are you creating data that you're worried about? We're just creating so much data these days, and we're always worried about everything all the time. People don't pick up the phone, they don't talk anymore. Everything's in some channel somewhere. So you have to be intentional about training your people and having information governance and having people essentially adhering to whatever your standards are. Like that needs to be, your compliance level there needs to be very tight in this world. But I think it's just the fact that we're going to create more and more information all the time.
I think for us, it's actually exposing a lot of areas where weren't buttoned up or need to get buttoned up. I mentioned the bot a couple times. We were trying to find an answer to a specific question, and one of the people using it got a search result that none of us got. Referred to a policy that was completely outdated in a draft condition. And we're like, how did you find this when that thing has been deleted a while ago? After a lot of question asking, we found that they had access to an ex-employee's drive that no one else had access to, but they had access to it. So the AI had an extra room to look into to find information. So those are areas that we need to be more buttoned up on, and we realize how much we need to be in at our company, our application lifecycle management team. Now legal has to sit on and like, how is finance using AI? How are their vendors using the AI? Our tax solutions. So we have to get in a lot of conversations to kind of keep learning more, and our internal AI is helping us expose.
Cool. Well, we are out of time. Thank you guys very much. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for being here.